The 6 stages of spiritual awakening go like this. Number 1, you wake up. It's really easy. I can tell that all of you are there already. That's stage 1. It's the big wake-up call. Number 2 is bliss. Number 3, the dark night. Number 4, the void or the gap. Number 5, grounding. And then number 6, life purpose and mission. So, how do we begin? We wake up. Number 1, stage 1, fully awake. All of a sudden, you went from being in your ordinary life, everything is exactly as you think it should be, and one moment you decide that something is different. This can happen to you at any moment. Some people experience this earlier in life. Some people experience this later in life, and I hate to say, some people never do. We probably know a few of those. So the truth is that this can happen and often does happen through what I call chaos or crisis. Oftentimes people experience this awakening through some sort of life-changing experience. But there's a caveat to that. It may not be that way at all. Some people just wake up, okay? So you've heard many times of stories of people that have had, terminal diseases, or something severe happens in their life, a crisis of some sort. Oftentimes it's an illness, sometimes it's a near-death experience, or a moment in which they understand their own mortality. There's only a certain amount of time that you are here as this person that you chose to be, correct? So that aha moment of, oh, wait a minute, there's got to be more to this than what we do every day, right? There's got to be more meaning to this. That is the wake-up call. For me personally, I got that wake-up call, and I can almost tell you exactly when I got that wake-up call. It was about 8 years ago, and it was just as I was getting to my 12 year. I don't know. I guess I always knew something was going to be different. And by the way, the wake-up call is really a remembering. Okay? What waking up is all of a sudden losing the amnesia that you came in with. Okay? Because we're all born awake. You know those beautiful little innocent children that we hold in our hands? Those children are fully awake. They're not asleep. We get conditioned to fall asleep. We get conditioned by our life, by the people around us, to train us into falling asleep. Okay? It's kind of like when you teach your puppy how to stay, in and not, pee on the floor, and you take them outside and they learn these things. That's what they do to us. They blind us to the truth of who we are. Okay? So we know who we are at all times. And like I've expressed in this before in other classes, our emotions are our compass. So our emotions are always telling us who we are. It's how we feel that creates either a flow or a resistance. And those emotions are our compass telling us, hey, you're off track. Hey, listen. And if we don't listen, we come to a point that becomes a crisis. And it's that crisis that causes us to wake up. Okay? When we ignore the emotions that we are experiencing and we dive into the conditioned fears of this life, we forget who we are. So waking up is really a remembering, okay? Remembering that we are souls having a physical experience. Remembering that at all times, there is no such thing as being separate from God. So think of waking up as your remember moment. Okay? So that's stage 1. Stage 2 is called bliss. And the reason it's called bliss is because that's exactly how it feels. It feels as though you've had this aha moment that you no longer feel separate from God. You know and are in total faith that you are connected to God. And that but can someone mute themselves? Make sure everybody's muted. So all of a sudden you're in such a beautiful state of wow, I feel so connected to everything around me, the trees, nature, beauty, everything turns you on. And really what I call this stage, bliss, is when your heart chakra opens wide up. Like it's literally, imagine you shattered the egg around your heart, that shell, that hard shell that's been built up by years of training, right? And there's all of a sudden this gap in the shell, and you pull it off and the light comes shining through and you feel it. You feel it like everywhere in your entire body, and you can be in this state for an incredible amount of time or an instant. And this is what we try to capture when we are in deep meditation and prayer. When we are able to get back to ourselves, we are able to join that state of bliss. And that's why I have to say, for me personally, because I can tell you when I experienced this too. Okay, that state can only be reached when your heart chakra is wide open and you are feeling the love from the inside out. But it's not sustainable. Okay? And I think it's important for me to mention that there is no, like I said, that there's no such thing as linear time here. So, I mean, this is in linear time, but this is the stage in which you're in. This is very, very intimate and personal to you. Okay? For me personally, waking up probably was a period of 2 years. 2 years. I can tell you from 2012, 2013, 2014, I was in that state of questioning everything. Questioning everything. It's like, what am I doing here? What is going on? Why don't I feel like I'm out of sorts? Okay? That was for me. Then the state of bliss is, I know the moment that I felt it because I was actually in a deep meditation when that happened. And my friends witnessed this, and I've shared this story with you guys in another class in which I broke down. Like I cried tears of pure joy and love for like an hour and a half. Okay. So that's how wide open my heart broke. And then you go into the dark night. Now, some people know this as the dark night of the soul, right? The dark night of the soul is, I have another word for it. I call it sometimes the dark night of the ego or the big purge. Okay, the big purge. Just like the wake-up call is a remembering, bliss is your heart chakra opening up to joy and love. The dark night is the big purge. And I believe, and I've seen other people going through this stage. In fact, some people, I think we have an epidemic of this stage in our planet. We have, just like we have a pandemic of dark nights. Because I call the dark night the greatest symptoms of spiritual awakening. They are the most painful stage that you can be in. This dark night can be called depression. And so many of us on this planet are depressed. And because we become depressed, because there's so much inside of us to purge, the reason that we become depressed is because all of the crap that we have stuffed down into our bodies and into our souls has to come out to clean. Okay? I used to tell this funny little metaphor, okay? You know, you may have a rug on your floor and you have a pet, and this pet decided to use the corner of the rug where they know that you're not going to see it to do their little thing, okay? And you weren't there, so you didn't see it. And all of a sudden, you know, you kind of maybe smell something and you're like, this is a little weird, but you can't find it because it's hidden, right? And then one fine day, you grab the corner of the rug and you lift it and you go, ¿qué es esto? This is disgusting. By that time, it's like molded and gross and it's stained and it's really bad, really bad. So much so that you don't even know what to grab first. Clorox wipes, water. You have no idea what to do with that thing. But you know that you got to get it clean because it just can't stay that way. You could possibly ignore it, right? And a lot of people do. A lot of people ignore the stain and say, no, forget it. Let me just spray some Febreze. Let me just cover up the smell and I'm not going to deal with it now. I just don't have the time. Okay? But it's got to be cleaned. And you know it. Because once you know it, it's too late. While you didn't know, it was fine. You could deal with it. That's the purge. And we all have our crap under the rug. All of us. Some of us know about it. Some of us are in the stage where we can smell it. Some of us are still in the ignoring stage. And what's really interesting about this stage is that just when you think you've purged a few, a new one comes up. My biggest, personally, was discovering that not only was this stage that I was in part of this life, it was part of other lives. So I've often said in this forum, what if the pain that you felt was not yours? Okay, what if the pain that you feel is a pain body that is carried not just by you, but by the ancestors that came before you? We carry pain bodies. Countries carry pain bodies. We are currently carrying and purging a pain body called racism. Okay? This is a big, big one. It's so big that it's global. And we're purging it. And purging it causes protests, causes, huge manifestations. And that's actually what we go through on a mini, mini scale as well as a grand scale. So when we're in the dark night, we are in the process of purging our crap. And depending on how much crap you've been carrying, you may carry a little baby travel bag, or you may carry a huge Louis Vuitton trunk. Okay? Whichever one size you have, it'll be directly related to how long you will be in the dark night. If you've done your work and you've cleaned out your trunk, and it may not even be cleaning from this lifetime. It may be you've cleaned, you have been doing some cleaning. If you've been cleaning out all of the crap that you've carried, you will have less time in this dark night. Okay? And be able to access bliss much more often. So for me personally, my dark night came when I discovered two things. One, that I was not happy that I was a woman again in this life. When I had to face the fact that I was like, I had made this choice for a reason, and that there was a big thing to purge. And that was to get rid of this powerlessness caused by abuse in my past. Not just the abuse of this life, but the abuse of other lives. And this was a big wake-up call for me. It manifested in my body as migraines, as issues with urinary tract infection. It manifested in so many different ways in me. And until I reconciled this issue that I had, this resentment, because basically it was a resentment. I resented that I had decided to be here this way again, and until I decided that I was okay with it, that I was going to deal with it, and I was going to use I was no longer going to be powerless as a woman, I wasn't able to purge and this attraction of abusive people into my life, particularly men, because that was the pattern. Okay, I created that pattern. I believed in it. And until I decided that that was no longer my truth, I couldn't move on. The second part of my dark night was when I realized that my blissful, loving, joyful state of design, interior design, wasn't enough to carry me through my career. And that's when the book came out of me. When I wrote the book, I was in that state of bliss that I was talking to you about. I was so connected that I literally downloaded the book in like a year. It just came out of me. I was directly speaking through myself and God. God came through me as words, as teachings, as a process that I knew would benefit others. I didn't write it. It came through me. So that was my state of bliss. But guess what? When I wrote the book, I realized that I was completely out of alignment in my life. The people that I was attracting were letting me have the experience, because I don't blame anything. Everything is created by me, right? So in no way am I a victim of that. I was just creating this reality called abusive people. And this reality came as clients, and they came as people that were teaching me what I didn't want to do. Like, okay, you've got to go in another direction, B. You've got to make your interior design career align with your spiritual healing, period. If you don't do that, you're going to be having a really difficult time. So that caused me to wake up to my true calling, to my true purpose. So those two things had to happen in the dark night for me. I had to go through a few years of completely shifting my business and completely speaking my truth and saying, I am a spiritual healer and an interior designer. And those two things have to be together. Otherwise, I don't even know what I'm doing here. Period. That was my reconciliation. That was my dark night. That was the way that I was able to get through the Clorox wipes under the rug, okay? And I can say today that I have passed that stage. Thank God. Because it's heavy. It's very heavy. It's almost overwhelming. I have a friend that's going through that stage right now, and she's been in it for years. And, you know, it's scary to watch because you don't know when you're going to come out. And sometimes people don't. And some people just stay deeply rooted into that dark night. And they try to get help. Maybe they get help through drugs, like literally going to a psychiatrist, a psychologist, getting medical help. But at the end of the day, that's kind of like Febreze, you know? It only hides and masks the problem. At the end of the day, you must purge it. You can't hide it. Because you can't hide from yourself. It's impossible. So unfortunately, that particular stage is one of the most challenging. So the next stage is called the void or the gap. Okay? So you've been through the wake-up call. You've known what it feels like to be completely connected to God, completely connected to yourself, know exactly what you are doing, where you're doing it. You just like, wow. And then, bam, you're dealing with all the stuff you've got to clean out. And then you hit a blank stage. You hit a, why can't I hear my messages anymore? Where am I? It's too quiet in here. Where did all those little synchronicities that were happening? What happened? What? And you're in this like silence. And you may be sitting there praying and you're, oh God, please come back to me. I don't know what I'm doing. Where are you? And it literally feels like that. It feels like a silence. Somebody pulled the plug. You know, you were so connected. Remember when I told you the metaphor of the lamp, that we're all little lamps? We need to just plug into the electrical cord, right? If we don't plug in, we don't do what we're supposed to do. We're just a nice little adornment. Okay? We're not here to be adornments. We're here to be on purpose. And when we plug in to the socket of the wall with a lamp cord, we're lights. When we unplug, we're no longer doing what we're supposed to do, which is light. Correct? So this is what that void feels like. It feels like you got unplugged. You know, we've all experienced that moment which Netflix disconnects and you're like, ¿Qué pasó aquí? And you're pushing the button and you're turning a thing off and unplugging the remote, plugging it back in, unplugging the remote, plugging it back in. You wait the 10 seconds. You're like, no, it's not working. Do it again, right? That's the void. You know, you've all seen that little spin, right? Accessing. And you're sitting there waiting, right? You're like, when is that thing going to turn on? All of a sudden, you might see a little image. Oh my God, I got connected. And then boom, it's gone again. That's the void. And that, again, why do we get disconnected from Wi-Fi? Does anybody know this answer? I have no answer for that. Do you? It drives me bananas. You're perfect one moment, right? And the next moment, you're unplugged. and you don't even know why, because you don't see it. That's what it feels like. That's called the void. That's the gap. But it passes. Guess what? It passes. And it passes especially if you, by this time, have realized, and this is why I insist that all of you develop your own personal, intimate spiritual practice, whatever that may be. Because if you don't, you will suffer painfully from that disconnection. Because once you've woken up, you cannot fall asleep again. It's impossible. Once you are awake, you cannot fall asleep. And if you find yourself in the void, in the gap, you will feel disconnected. And you will start having emotions that create resistance for you. And you will spiral into a place that you will begin to manifest things that are not necessarily what you desire. So if you keep a meditation practice, if you keep a prayer practice, if you have a whatever practice that is that you use, yoga, exercise, just good quality things that help your life, help your resonance rise, help your frequency and vibration rise. If you do whatever that is, you will get out of the gap and get to the next stage, which is called grounding. So grounding, the best way to describe grounding is, think of yourself as a tree, right? The tree is up above the ground and it has all of its stages happening out here. It could be losing its leaves. It could be sprouting new leaves in spring. It could be losing its leaves in fall, right? All of these seasons and cycles are happening for the tree. But the root system of that tree is fully embedded into the ground. Fully embedded. That root system is deep because it's been growing throughout all of these stages. Think of the wake-up call as the seed bursting, correct? Think of the next stage as the sprouting bliss. It's coming up to the light and exposing itself to all of its possibilities. But the grounding is when the root system has now gone deep into its purpose. Now you have a direction. For me, the grounding was actually literally changing my entire life and business, which involved two things. Implementing the way that I do my work. Literally understanding that when I create, I must create from the soulful place of who I am, and that my entire reason for being is to spread the word, to raise consciousness, to create beautiful environments that inspire people to live. And that is what I do. And it took me years to do this, guys. This did not happen overnight. I can tell you personally that I have been at least, because I did the calculation when I was writing all of this down, I've been on this journey for about 8 years now. That's how long it's taken me to get through all of these stages. And I'm very happy to say that I believe that I'm on my 6th stage, which is life purpose and mission. For all of you, each stage may take less or more time. You don't know. It just depends on where you are in your evolutionary state as a soul, not as who you are right now, not as B Pila, okay? As a soul, I am in this stage. And I can tell you that it's interesting to be on this side of an awakened state and see others that may or may not be awake yet, and to look at those people with love and with compassion and with understanding and respect, because you don't beat a 2-year-old for not knowing calculus, okay? You just don't. That's just not done. If you happen to be at a stage where you are understanding these concepts, you're not going to beat somebody up that's in a lower stage of learning and growth. It's just the way that it is. So we need to be in that place of love at all times, of understanding, even if we wish things were different. You can't force this to go any faster for anyone, because everyone is going through their own journey. You know, Joseph Campbell writes about it from a perspective of the hero's journey, right? The story of the alchemist takes you on that hero's journey. And most of our epic stories, even Star Wars, is a hero's journey, okay? We're all on our hero's journey. We all are. And that journey may take longer or less time for you personally. So the 6th stage, which is life, purpose, and mission, is the stage that hopefully lasts the rest of your life. And that is where I am. And that is why I'm doing this. I'm here in front of you today because I got a second wake-up call when this pandemic hit. And I had a choice. I could stay in my little cocoon, like we all have been, and ignore the messages of speak your truth, be, go out there and talk, do something. Stop just dreaming about it and just do it. And that's when I decided to do this, because I could no longer ignore the importance of speaking these truths to others. How many there are. I don't know how many lives I will touch. It doesn't really matter because every single person is important. And to me, this is a ripple effect. If I can make you aware of where you are at this moment, then you can in turn graduate to your next stage. So I don't know at which stage you all feel you are in. Some of you may feel like several things are happening at once, and that is absolutely possible. This is what I meant about it not being on a linear time. In order to explain it to you, I've got to go through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But the truth is that it may or may not be linear for you. You may be simultaneously going through moments of dark night, moments of gap, moments of grounding, moments of bliss, all at the same time. And that's perfectly okay. What I do know for sure is that all of you are awake. And that makes me so happy. It makes me so happy because just the fact that you are another individual on this planet doing your thing to elevate consciousness is important. because we're all on this mission together. Each of us with our gifts, with our talents, with our abilities. How we express this and how we get on this mission is what we've discussed in another class, which I tried to show you words that could trigger what your purpose and mission is, and writing your mission statement, your personal mission statement, which is also important. And for me, as you know, has evolved, because I've shared with you that I have had an original mission statement that became the title of my book, and now has evolved to a new mission statement that is more connected to my soul. And those can be happening simultaneously. In fact, I encourage it because we have work to do. And because we're in this life being the beings that we are, remember, we're human beings, we're not human doings. Okay, we happen to do things, but we are not human doings. This is the mistake that a lot of people make. We think that we're human doers, but we're not. We're human beings. And in order to be, we must connect. So the mission here, because you're awake, because your heart chakras are no longer asleep, because you've broken the shell open, what are you going to do about it? What stage are you in? What is still waiting to be purged out of you? Because I guarantee you one thing. If you don't purge the stuff that's inside of you, you cannot climb this ladder successfully. And it is a ladder. You take one step and the next one appears. And the next one appears. When you're going to climb a mountain, you don't really know exactly where your foot is going to land, right? On that next ridge. Sometimes that ridge is just out of sight, right? You don't know where that ridge is until you maybe lift yourself up high enough that the next ridge of that mountain appears. And there's almost like a faithful act. It's almost a moment of deep faith that that ridge will appear, where you can put your foot on it and push up to the next level. This is what this climb is about. I can only tell you from my own personal experience that the climb for me, now looking back, I can see the ridges on the mountain. But I didn't see them until I got to the next stage. Do you get me? It's kind of like eras. I feel like we look back, right? When we look back at the history of eras, don't we see distinctive moments in which humanity has changed? Correct? We went from the medieval eras, all the way to now the industrial age, the technology age. Now we're in this new age. Really, they call it a new age for a reason, guys. This is an era. We are all in this moment, in this time, to usher in a new era. We are done with the eras of the past. And that's kind of an interesting word. We're done with the errors of the past. We are ushering in, we are personally pioneering a new era into this planet. And it is so ironic that it is 2020 vision. Isn't it perfect? 2020. What does 2020 mean? 2020 means seeing clearly the errors that we must purge. This next era will be unforgettable. We've been through eras in the past, and could you actually distinguish the moment in which that era changed? Like, think about it. We talk about the 60s, right? And we know about the 60s and that they were so hippie, flower child. We know that era, right? We know it very well, perfectly. We dress up in it if we go to Halloween. We know it perfectly, but do we know when it started? Exactly? Do we know when it finished? Exactly. Do we know when we were going to the next one? No. Then the 70s, right? We know the 70s in our head. We can grasp what they were about. Cool, right? We know him. Mary Tyler Moore comes to my mind. Like, think about it, like we knew her almost in the leisure suit mask, kind of semi-masculine women starting to get out into the workforce in a new way. We know that era, right? Then the 80s. What were the 80s about? Woo! And then the 90s. Man, we went backwards. In the 90s, everything was like about stuff, acquiring more stuff. Let's just get more, right? And now where are we? We are ushering in a completely new time. A new time to change this world, to change the systems that no longer serve us. Because the systems are, in fact, of the past. And our children and our children's children will be the benefactors of this, of these changes that we are making right now. So this awakening that is occurring, and in fact, I believe that this pandemic has actually ushered in a grander awakening than ever before, because it does take going in to be able to bring it out. It can't happen while the noise of the planet is so loud that we can't even hear ourselves think. We've been given a timeout. Pow pow. Go back to your room and think about what you've done. What you've done to me, planet, Mother Earth. We know what we've done. We know we've been bad kids. We have to fix it. So as we awaken and understand these stages that we're going through, we'll be more able to navigate them. Because if we know that a storm is coming, if we know that the hurricane is coming, we can better prepare and understand that it's a stage and see it from a grander perspective, separating ourselves from the chaos and being able to navigate the storm from a bigger perspective, from a perspective of love. Because that's what we're designed to do. We were born with that innate, natural state called love. And we get it conditioned out of us. So I don't know what stages you're in. I'd love to hear about them. I know mine. I'm happy to be at the stage that I'm in. And let me tell you, it's not, like I said, static. I know that I'm in my mission stage. I know that I'm in my life purpose stage. I know this to be true. But that doesn't mean that sometimes I get unplugged. Okay? I do get unplugged. But at least now I know what allows me to plug back in. I know the steps that I got to take. I know that I got to disconnect the modem and plug it back in. And I hope to stay in this stage for the rest of my life. I hope to be able to bring this information out into the world as much as I can every day, in every way, in every aspect of what I do. That's my goal and my mission. And I'm super clear about it. And I hope we all become very clear about that being the underlying mission that we all came here for. Because these are exciting times, guys. Exciting. Yes, I use the word exciting because it's much better word than scary. It's exciting. And you know it, you feel it. You feel that there's something, it's like the world is pregnant with new possibilities. But we've got to make them because we create our own realities. We create our realities in our own lives, and we create our realities in the planet's lives together, collectively. So it's a big responsibility. And I guess at this moment, we've all discovered that it is a responsibility and that we can no longer ignore it or leave it under the rug. We've got to do something about it. I'm doing it in my way. I hope that all of you do it in your ways because it's what you came here for. Let that sink in. I feel the quietness. It is a lot, but it's good stuff. It's all good stuff.
Are you opening up for comments now?
Yes, I am. Thank you, Lourdes.
Thank you very much for this. You are more enlightening than Oprah, if I could say that, at least for me. It's just more applicable, you know what I mean? So I think that's really helpful. So one of the things, and I'm not sure whether this merits a full session or not, but I'm a little bit confused about vibrations. So on one hand, I hear that lowering, your vibration and grounding, as we were speaking today, through meditation, where you're kind of, your body and your brain are at a standstill and you're kind of trying to just, I guess, merge with the universe for, guidance. And then I hear about, like, for example, and I think I was talking to you about the other day, like the Silva mind method. They feel the way they teach it is that we need to go into, I think some people think it's a higher vibration and some people think it's a lower vibration. So Silva Mind Control thinks it's a lower vibration. Other teachings I hear you have to get to a higher vibration. So I'm a little bit confused about that. And I've even started to kind of look into the theta, beta, alpha stages of mind. And there was some research done that when babies are born and people die, the last brain frequencies that they are able to measure is what they call delta frequencies. So they feel like the delta frequency, it's almost half on this frequency vibration, and the other half is in the other part of the world. And as babies are being born, you can actually measure the brain frequency from nothing into, immediately comes into delta. And it actually stays in delta for babies for a while. And before people die, the last brain waves that they are able to measure are delta. And so they feel like this delta stage, when you can get to it, is when you're right there on the cusp of this dimension and the other one. And so that's why in their meditation teaching, they try to teach you to go down into this delta stage. But that's a very low vibration stage, as opposed to sometimes I hear that you have to raise your vibration to manifest. So they could be two different things, but I'm a little confused about it. So,
well, I can tell you what I know about it myself. I cannot claim to be an expert in brain waves, because what I do know is that we are all 100% vibration. Like everything around us is a vibration. Okay. So frequency and vibration are similar from the standpoint of, let's think of it as sound or light. In order for us to perceive this, you have to have senses. So if we do not have our eyes, right? If we do not have our eyes, we cannot perceive the light, and our brain waves cannot pick up the images that we are seeing, correct? So there's two things that are in a constant state of vibration that within us that are like little brains, Lourdes. So, because you're referring to brain waves and I'm referring to heart waves. Okay? Our heart and our mind, and actually today, scientifically, it's starting to come out more information about the heart. They're saying that the heart is actually like a little brain. Nobody was talking about that before because we gave great importance to the brain as the everything, the most important thing in our bodies, because it is the processor. Okay? The brain is definitely the one that does go into theta, alpha, delta, and all of these waves, right? And they can be considered high or low, but it's in the synchronicity of the brain with the heart wave that we manifest. This is why I speak about the soul and the ego. Okay? It's two different frequencies. The frequency of the brain is the frequency of the ego. It's the thought processor. Okay? Think of it as the raw computer. It's as if, you know how a robot, there's robots today, and there's going to be artificial intelligence in our lifetimes, guys. There's going to be tremendously huge advancements in technology to the point that we will have humanoid-like robots that can do the work of 100 human beings without getting sick, right? Or can go into radioactive places where a human being would perish, correct? These are good things. This is good artificial intelligence. But at the end of the day, these are waves or brains. These are not hearts. Without connection to the heart, you do not connect to the both waves together. They must be in synchronistic harmony. And when our heart waves and our brain waves are disconnected from each other, when we're all thought, we're all ego. This is where fear occurs the most, because our memory banks are holding all of these conditions that are telling us, oh yeah, be careful, don't cross the street. You can't go over there. That somebody might steal your car. This is the ego, right? The heart is in a different wave pattern. And if these two are not synchronized together, that's when you have trouble manifesting. Because I know that you struggle with this. You know why, Lourdes? Because you're very much a left brain person. You are a logical, analytical person. That is your natural state. You were born that way. And your challenge is to connect with your heart all the time. You need to let go of the thought and connect to the heart. When my heart opened, like I told you earlier in this session, it was so dramatic. It was so big that all I could feel was love. love is the vibration, the highest vibration of the heart. Okay? I'm not sure about the theta, delta, and I'm going to look into it because you piqued my curiosity, and I promise you that once that happens, I start diving in. But I can tell you that there's a distinct difference between brain waves and heart waves. Okay? The heart speaks a different language. And that's what we're trying to learn how to do. We're trying to speak the language of the heart, but we're trying to unify it with the language of the brain. When those two come together, that's when we flow without resistance. Okay? And intuitively, as human beings, we naturally are born speaking the language of the heart. Children speak the language of the heart. They have no prejudice. They have no conditioning. You know, they speak that language loud and clear. But what happens is that as they become conditioned, the ego takes over and we forget to connect to our heart. And when that disconnect occurs, we are the ones that feel out of sorts because we've given a higher precedent to the brain versus the heart. And that's just false information. Not one is not more important than the other. They both must work together. This is the yin and the yang of this planet. This is the polarity. This is the good and the bad. This is the light and the dark. Both are good. The dark is not bad. It's like saying the light is bad. No, they're both good, but they both must work together in order to serve the purpose of the soul. Do we get that? I've spoken a lot about this. And to me, I naturally gravitate to the language of the heart. And when I went into the dark night of the soul, it was because I lost my heart. When our heart gets hurt, we shut it down. When there's too much pain in our lives, we create a big, huge force field around our heart and we shut it down because it's painful. You know, whenever we hear a tragic story and we tear up and we put our hand to our heart, we always do, right? This is a natural instinct. When we hear something tragic, we put our hand to our heart. We go, God, I can't believe that happened. Right? This is a natural instinct in us. We don't do this. No, we do this. Okay? We connect with our heart. So for me, the answer to your question regarding frequencies and vibrations is that the highest vibration that exists and the one that is, I believe, of greater importance than the brain is the heart. Because without it, you're always in the head, in thought, in ego, and you're manifesting from here. The goal is to manifest from here. If you're doing that, nothing goes wrong. Let the heart lead the ship. Okay? Is there any other questions or comments?
I actually have a recommendation. I have a book here, and I was looking, when she asked that question, it also sparked that interest in me. I was looking in this book. It's called Frequency by Penny Pierce, and it gets into waves and vibrations. I think there's a difference between them.
I'm going to read on this because it is intriguing to me too.
Right. But yeah, just a recommendation on that to learn a little bit more.
What is the author?
By Penny Pierce, Frequency.
Penny Pierce. I know that Greg Braden speaks a lot about this, and so does Joe Dispenza. Both of these men are scientists. Lourdes, I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I think that you.
No, the guy that I sort of listened to this information from is Silva, and he started the Silva mind control. He's passed away, but his daughter carries it on, and it's so he's very he's pretty scientific about it. You know what I mean? Like he talks about just the body and how. And so, I guess I get it since you were saying I'm a very left-brained person. But he talks about, how we are all atoms, and that's why some frequencies can travel through walls. Things can travel through walls because they're broken up into the atom stage, because the frequency keeps the atoms at a certain distance from each other, that you can be bewitched or a genie, walk through walls, appear yourself somewhere else. But that's because your vibration, from my understanding, which I could have gotten it all backwards, was really low. And so when you're really low, your atoms are spread out. When your vibration is really high, you stick together. So become solid, right? So in a high vibration, you're solid. You're a human being. You're something you can touch. And a really low vibration is when you become, see-through, transparent, etc. So, but I'm not sure, because it could be, like you say, there's a difference between frequency and vibration.
Yes.
So
yes.
maybe and what he was talking about was, how the different stages of the brain waves. So that's,
yeah, because I think that what the Silva method is more focused on is how the brain functions. And I think it's very valuable, because we are, in fact, it's an impossibility to disconnect the two parts of ourselves.
Yeah, it's called mind control. So definitely it's about the brain.
The power of the subconscious mind is huge.
That's exactly what he teaches about.
I've read a lot about the power of the subconscious mind. In fact, oftentimes this is funny, but oftentimes when I recommend a book to a man, I will recommend a book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. When I recommend a book regarding this to a woman, I may use other books like You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay, because depending on the type of person that you are, whether you're more left brain or right brain, you will absorb this information in different ways. At the end of the day, though, it's all very, very similar. We're all speaking the same language. And when I went through the 14 universal laws, it's really important to go back to how those work. These laws are as important as the law of gravity, reciprocity, law of attraction, cause and effect. If you think about it, Albert Einstein was incredibly spiritual. If you read some of his work, he talked about energy, and he's probably one of the most amazing genius scientists that we've ever had, right? But he was incredibly faithful. He understood that the heart is just as important as the brain. And the problem is that we've lost that. We used to be incredibly mystical. Like if you think back in the times of pre technology and all of this, everything was very mystical. We were very in touch with nature, right? Everything was more ethereal because we didn't know as much science, right? So we had to trust our heart. Like if you think about the Egyptians, the Mayans, they were looking at constellations and temples and ceremonies because they were intuiting. They were having intuition be their guides, right? That was one extreme. Then we went to the other extreme, right? Because you know how the pendulum always swings to extremes, right? We went to the other extreme of technology. Now everything has to be answered from the head. And nothing makes sense unless it's scientific. We don't believe it unless it's proven. And is that really true? Does nothing exist beyond the proof of science? That's not true, is it? So what we're trying to do right now in this new era, in this new age, is to merge the knowledge of these two worlds. We're trying to grasp all the science and all the technology that we have learned and merge it with the past and the mysticism of the past. Bring them together into a harmonious place. And we're doing this from the outside in, but we're also doing it from the inside out. We're doing it inside of ourselves first, because until we do it inside of ourselves, we cannot possibly merge those two outside of ourselves. They're going to be in disharmony until we are in harmony. We are trying to get into coherence with ourselves. And that involves definitely the frequency of the heart and the frequency of the mind. When we successfully do this within ourselves, we can go out into the world and attempt to do it for others. But we got to get our shit together first. And we will. This is what we're doing. We're doing this like this today, listening, learning, understanding. But most importantly, not just from a place of the mind, from a place of the heart. We've got a lot of knowledge, guys, but it's time to apply it into wisdom. Hi, Christina.
Hi, I actually want to say hi to everyone, and I want to make a comment. First of all, I'm like the person who have been through all the stages. I tried to share my experience last time, but I'm so blessed that to hear that from B, how she put it into words for people to really understand. I'm experiencer, but I never would be able to explain and express it the way B does to be understandable and to be relatable. And so B, like from the bottom of my heart, like every time I hear you, I'm more and more impressed, like always. And because she's explaining unexplainable things in a perfect way. You cannot do any perfect. I want to cry. You cannot do. And I
They're
was
organic.
saying that, yeah.
Are they sweet?
I was wanted to say that actually you guys also are very blessed to be able to hear that, because I was not that lucky when I went through this experience. I was like a blind kitten. So that's why I was sharing this experience. And it was 1 hour and a half of this dark night of the soul, great, thankfully. Then my husband showed it to me, what happened to me. But I think it's important, like B does, to deliver this information, because a lot of people are awakening right now, and it's true, and on different stages, though they're aware where they are, and when things happen to them, they see it from the perspective of knowing what is going on with them, instead of like blame it for like some other causes, because it might be for their bad mood, it might be simple answer, not something from outside, but this purge inside. Or like our people who around us suffer from this. And if people around us know that what we are going through too, like me and my husband, we did meditation, and thankfully he did more research. So you can guide each other in these processes and support when you don't feel well and when you are aggressive, and just like be aware where it's coming from instead of just dealing with it blindly. So also I wanted, if you guys are interested in that, I wanted to share with you some, I'm not good in explaining what happened to me, but Wikipedia does it better. Actually, Mark found this for me, this mind map, which I went through, which he read to me, and I went step by step through all these emotions. So if you guys interested, I can share this with you it's from internet page. If you want to read, you can tell me.
why don't you post that on our...
Yes, I can do that. It's a Buddhist way of like enlightened. Wait, I don't know. But it's actually whatever it says, it's totally true to my experience. And I totally agree with B that every experience is different and you can go simultaneously through all the stages and jump over the stages. But it's beautiful, that we all here and that we're all going through that together. And anyway, I wish everyone all the best and good luck with that. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Enjoy the process.
Thank you. Yes. Thank you.
It's easier to enjoy it once you're through it.
It's easier to enjoy when you know what you're going through. Then the bad stuff, like you said, B, it's not the bad stuff. You don't see this shit that happens to you as a shit anymore. You see it as a step to something beautiful. And then it doesn't look that shitty anymore, even if you feel like it.
That's exactly it. While you're going through it, though, I have to say, I have a friend that is going through the dark night, and I watch it and I support it as much as possible. And for her, it's been quite a long time, and it's painful to watch because you know how deep it is, how dark it is, and you don't see the light at the end of the tunnel sometimes. But some of us will go through it quickly. Some of us will go through it very, very slowly. And if anyone that you know is experiencing that, or if you're going through it, reach out and share with people that you trust, that truly love you and truly care for you, and that can understand what you're going through, because we're all going through it. We all will. The point is that we must. It's not something, it's kind of, I think that what we're experiencing right now actually on our planet is such a huge dark night. This is a big dark night of the soul. That's really actually what we're going through right now. There's so much stuff that's coming out to the surface. We've already been in it for quite a while. I mean, as we've seen these movements like the Me Too movement, all of this disclosure, all of this stuff that's been hidden away, the ugly stuff that has been part of our reality has to come out. And until we see it for what it is, we stare it in the eyes and we clean up our act, it's going to continue to come out. And it's metaphorically happening, like I said, internally in us, as well as externally on the planet. And that's what makes it even more impactful, because as we are awakening, the planet is awakening. I don't think this has ever happened. I don't think we've ever had an opportunity to do this, both from the inside out individually and from the outside in globally. This is a unique time, guys. Think about it. When have we had the technology, right, to do this, to be on a Zoom call like this, that we can all communicate with each other, listen to each other, learn from each other, anywhere in the world, and at the same time be going through this ourselves? Like, this is unprecedented. I mean, if you think about the times of the past, the Egyptians, let's say, were doing their thing, building their pyramids and their temples and doing their stuff. And then you had the Mayans on the other side of the planet. Did they know about each other? No, right? But it was going on. Today, if that was going on, believe me, we would all know it. We would all be YouTubing. Can you imagine Tutankhamun on YouTube? All right, think about it. This is unique. That's what's so cool about it all, is that even though it sucks because you're watching it all live, you're watching the stupidities that people are doing, but you're also watching the beauty of what people are doing. It's incredible. It's like the best movie ever. It's an epic. We're in the middle of this freaking epic. We're going to look back, hopefully, 10 years from now, because we'll all still be here, and we'll be telling our children, oh, you have no idea what 2020 was like. That was crazy. Okay. We're going to have a lot to talk about. We're going to have a lot of stories to tell. And hopefully we'll all be in a much more beautiful place because of it, because we've cleaned our shit. That's what we're here to do. Let's start cleaning this shit up. Okay. No more Febreze for you.
It's funny that you say that because I Febreze everything, B. And especially if I say, I necesita Febreze.
Well, no more Febreze. Clean deep.
Don't Febreze the aura.
Just Febreze.
You gotta get Lysol. You gotta move to Lysol. That disinfects.
Disinfect.
I would love if there was like a Febreze for the aura, right? Wouldn't that be fantastic? Well, excuse me, let me pull out my Febreze for the aura.
That's when you take out the sage.
Exactly. Thank you. That is the true Febreze. That's the best Febreze of all.
Ask you too. Another thing is you had talked about energy in motion in the past, which obviously kind of stems back to what you're kind of touching upon today and what Lourdes brought up. I don't know if you're aware, but I was discussing this with somebody and it became known to me that there's a movie called E-Motion. And I found it on this source called, I don't know if it's Gaia or Jaya or it's G-I.
Gaia, yeah.
Yes. So on there, also for Lourdes, there's a series as well called, it's on the brainwave stuff too, Introduction to Your Brain. It's a series. So there's a lot of information about what you're talking about. And I started watching the emotion and it's really interesting to really hear about everything that we've kind of been talking about.
Where do I access it?
It's an app called Jaya, G-I-A-I.
Gaia. It's called Gaia. Gaia is an app that, Gaia is the word for Mother Earth.
But how do you spell it?
G-I-A.
Gaia. G, right? Am I right?
G-A-I-A, excuse me.
G-A-I-A. Yes, Gaia.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, Leslie. You're such a great resource. I love her. She's so studious.
Well,
thank you.
For me, it's like I'm on the right side of the brain. So I'm like, I want to be with love and all this stuff. But I also have a left brainer in my house, which is Fernando. And so always like, and then it's like, okay, so then you try to think about the scientific side because he wants facts. He wants to know, the why is it that way, and then it starts to intrigue me. And that's how I got into that.
Well, that's good. But, you have a big, strong left brain, too, because you're very organized in your business. And that's also a blessing when you have a good balance in your brain, because if you are balanced in right and left brain, you're able to take both sides of these issues. And we've talked about how even understanding when something manifests physically in your body on the left side or on the right side, it's the counter to your feminine and masculine, your ego and your heart. You understand once you start, like me, I've said before in this forum that everything used to happen to me on my left, everything. Left. And that's because I was resisting being my complete whole self, including the feminine. I was resisting being the feminine. So when you do that, guess what? Everything occurs on the left. It's almost like a little knock on the door. Excuse me, you're not listening. Hello, wake up. And then it'll continue to do that. So I always find it funny when people tell me, when say, oh my God, I broke my right wrist, or I broke my left wrist, or I had an issue on here or on there. I'm always inside of myself saying, I wonder why you're out of balance, right? Because the body will manifest the opposite of what you're out of balance with. Okay. So thank you. Gaia is an amazing resource. It is an app. It's similar to YouTube, but it's completely directed towards this work, this kind of information from incredible writers and metaphysical teachers and self-development. So Gaia is truly an amazing resource to tap into for any information like this. And Gaia happens to be the word for Mother Earth. So, wow. I know this was going to be a good one. You all seem very, very contemplative. I hope that this carries you throughout the week, that you think about these 6 stages and where you might be in. And also, you know, for those of you that have joined us today, like Lily, thank you so much for getting on. It's so, so wonderful to see you. There's other recordings that you can tap into now and catch up with us, because they do kind of layer onto each other. They're not linear, as I haven't done this in any linear fashion at all, but they do layer onto each other. So the more information you have, the easier it is to put this lesson together with lesson of the universal laws and lesson of the emotions and the frequencies and lessons about this. And it's my goal at some point in the future, when we're no longer in this pandemic stage, to see us all face to face in a workshop in which we can share these things together, because I do believe in the power of masterminding together. When people are in groups and they are gathered together, their vibration and frequency elevate each other. And in turn, we come up with new and creative ideas and ways to save ourselves and save our planet. So I hope someday in the future we can be together.
And that's actually the idea of what? That's actually the idea about going to church. You know how everybody says, well, I don't really need to go to church.
Yes.
That's the idea behind going to church. Oh,
correct.
Sorry.
Correct.
Next time.
More I've experienced personally, because I have done a lot of this self-development work and been in workshops. And I know Leslie, I met actually at the Goldman Sachs program, which is really a business course. But in turn, you know, when you are gathered together in that group, we were a 30 of us, I think, right, Leslie? And you consistently do that, and you're able to connect with each other. Just thoughts and ideas just come up. It's like they just bubble up. It's beautiful to watch. And I hope someday that we can have a retreat together to study these ideas and to learn and grow and expand together in a group. Because here I'm more of a lecturer, I'm more of a teacher, but when we are together in a group, it gives us the opportunity for longer periods of time to express ourselves and have our little aha moments and share them. And it elevates the entire group together. So that's in the future. It's definitely planned. I know it's going to happen. And I hope we can do it in some beautiful natural environment, like a cabin in the woods or a gorgeous retreat, so we can be inspired by nature as well, and include things like meditations, which I would love to do as well, and maybe a little yoga, a little stretching, a little happy hour. So all of that I know will be coming soon. Thank you so much for joining me this morning and allowing me to share these gifts and this information, and sending you all out with better light and higher frequencies and lots of love.
Thank you, B.
Thank you.
Bye, ladies. Happy Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.